Welcome back to One World, Many Theories. As you know, every Thursday we invite different experts to help us analyze a contemporary issue from different perspectives using international relations theories. In today's episode, we will be talking about the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. Why did the U.S. take this decision? First of all, we would like to give a context about the agreement so we can start analyzing it from a realist point of view. The Paris Agreement is a treaty that was approved in December 2015 by 196 countries, which signified an important step forward to keeping global warming under 2°C above pre-industrial levels. The agreement paves the way for leaders to make the emissions reduction pledges that will be necessary for the world meet the collective goal. However, in June 2017, the United States President Donald Trump announced that the U.S. would withdraw from the Paris Agreement. We invited different experts to theorize about this contemporary issue. Please welcome Andrea Barrera, an academic from Mexico who specializes her studies in international treaties.
Thanks for the invitation, Elena. To start, I want to make emphasis in how treaties operate in dual international and domestic contexts. In the international context, many international agreements that are binding in nature constitute compacts between nations. In this context, international law creates a distinct set of rules governing the way in which sovereign states enter into and withdraw from international agreements. The legal regime governing withdrawal under domestic law may differ in meaningful ways from the procedure for withdrawal under international law, and the domestic withdrawal process may be further complicated if Congress has enacted legislation implementing an international pact into the domestic law of the United States.
So, under the domestic law of the United States, a treaty is an agreement between the United States and another state that does not enter into force until it receives the advice and consent of a 2/3 majority of the Senate, and it's subsequently ratified by the President. Right, Andrea?
Exactly. While political commitments are not intended to be binding under domestic or international law, they may nonetheless carry moral and political weight and other significant incentives for compliance.
Thanks, Andrea. It is really important for our listeners to have a clear understanding about how the withdrawal works. Cuesta and Emilio Guas are both realist theoretical authors. They came to this episode to give us a theoretical approach to this issue. Thanks for being here, Karen and Emilio.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful for the invitation. Because of the lack of time, I will go straight to the point. Analyzing from a realist perspective the withdrawal of the US from the Paris Agreement, can be said it is a protectionist decision. As President Donald Trump established, it was influenced by the economic disadvantage the United States would have had in comparison with other nations such as China. This means the loss of economic power around the world. As we can analyze, the problem is the empowerment of other countries. From a realist perspective, the decision made by the US is driven by the need to preserve the power because it is the only way they can protect themselves. Also, this decision was made in accordance with their national interest, which is the well-being of their citizens. As Morgenthau established, the statesman must think in terms of the national interest conceived as power among other powers.
Right, Karen. That reminds me of the famous situation of tragedy of the commons, where individual users act according to their own self-interest, contrary to the common good of all users. In other words, the Paris Agreement was affecting the US citizens because of the loss of jobs, lower wages, shutter factories, and vastly diminished economic production in the United States.
Exactly. In synthesis, what the US did was imposing their national interest above international interest, and that is precisely what a realist will do, because national interest will always guide foreign policy, and also a realist will avoid any type of interdependence with other nations, which is the case of the Paris Agreement.
Yes, I agree, Karen. To finalize, I will emphasize that the idea of realism is considered for the negative side of the state. The United States has been a realistic stand, which means that the country develops a single idea of actions in the name of freedom or for America. Today, the US is one of the most powerful countries within economics and industrial capacity. The Paris Agreement specifies a series of steps to stop using a lot of resources and industry rules to prevent the risk of major contamination. but the industrial power of the US needs this consume of resources to keep the mass production, which means that the people of the US didn't want to continue in the agreement because of risk of losing power in global markets and getting a bad economy because of the lack of production. It's a country in the realistic point of view because it's a country that justifies their acts according to votes or freedom of will, but with a real interest in being powerful and economic major state.
Really interesting. Thanks, Andrea, Karen, and Emilio, for sharing all your knowledge.